What's up, guys? The Magic Mike coming at you again with another video. About to teach you guys about Renolock this time. Um, most of these videos are supposed to be intended for newer players or players that don't necessarily understand deck archetypes as well as they necessarily could. But I feel like this is one of those type of decks that a lot of people want to play, but don't really know how to play it correctly or like what exactly you want to look for with the deck. So I guess this video is more guided for like the rank 10 or rank 15, maybe in the rank 5 players that can't quite get over the hump. So I wanted to explain the cards in the deck that I run. I don't run Leroy Faceless PO combo, although it's a very powerful combo. The deck's so filled with aggro right now that those three cards are pretty much dead. I mean, you're never going to burst a Pirate Warrior down with a 20 damage combo on turn 10. Like, that's just not going to happen. You beat them by controlling the board and removing their minions. So those cards don't really serve much of a purpose. And if you're playing like a more control deck, even though you don't have those cards, there's still the threat of them being in there, right? So like you pretty much get 3 free cards in your deck because if you're playing something like a Reno Priest or something, they're scared at 20 when they have 20 health, they're scared they might get comboed down. So they might use a Reno for nothing because they're scared because they don't know that you don't have that combo. So it's almost like you have the combo without having the combo. So I don't really think it's necessary to run. So here's the cards I run. I'm going to talk about the cards that aren't in the normal builds, or like in every build, I guess, and explain why I think they are good cards. I mean, this isn't like my original list or anything. And there's plenty of other choices you can use for these cards. Corruption, that's one of them. It's not like an insane card, but it's essentially 1 mana, kill a minion, a turn later. So like, there's gonna be times where you just don't have the answer. You know, like if you're playing uh, a dragon priest or something, and they drop multiple Yseras because they discovered them off Netherspite, you're just not gonna have that many answers. So maybe you need a corruption. I mean, if Ysera's only around for 1 turn, you take 4 damage and he gets an extra dream card, but at least it's gone, you know? That's the reason why I run Blast Crystal Potions as well. Some people run something like BGH to answer like a 4 mana 7/7, which is in that scenario, BGH is strictly better because you get a 4/2 body. But Blast Crystal is so much more versatile. So it can answer like a Ysera or an Ancient of War, Draconoid Operative. Um, good cards that you need to get rid of that aren't necessarily, 7 attack. So I think Blast Crystal is strictly better in almost every sense, except that you don't get the body. And normally when you're using Blast Crystal Potion, you have, it's going to be on a big minion, so it's going to be later on in the game. You're going to have enough mana that if you lose a crystal, it's not a huge deal. You're going to be able to play the cards that you want to play. Soulfire, that's one of the cards that I run. I think it's better than PO because although PO can be coupled with Sylvanas or a Shadow Flame, Soulfire, it doesn't make you lose a minion, and it can just push for direct damage if you don't have a minion on board. And also, for the most part, when you're playing Renolock, you're going to have a bunch of cards in your hand that aren't necessarily going to see value. If you have a card that has value, you're almost always going to play it. But there's going to be times where you're playing like a Reno Mage or something, and you have Acidic Swamp Ooze and Doomsayer and Demon Wrath all sitting in your hands that have no value at all. You discard one of those, it doesn't really matter to you. So in that sense, it's strictly better. Another card, Mistress of Mixtures. I'm not 100% sure if that's um, the card to run. I could see Spellbreaker being in there instead because that's really good against Rogue. It denies a coin off a Tomb Pillager. It silences a Questing or a Edwin. But being able to heal early game is important, and it can contest like a small time Buccaneer or something. So I think it's a decent card. I'm not 100% sold on it, but I think it's pretty good. Um, Most of these cards are pretty standard. I think Jiraxis is really important. For a while, people weren't running Jiraxis and they were running combo instead, but I personally don't see that. I mean, normally when you play Jiraxis, you're either playing it in a matchup where you have like 25 health and you play Jiraxis because it's an auto win once you play it, like against Priest or Control Warrior. Or you can play it as a heal against some decks because sometimes you play Reno on 6 and they just have such a big board that once you wipe it on turn 8 with Twisting Nether, you're about to die. So you got to play Jiraxis to get to 15. So I mean, I think it's a pretty good card and it's definitely worth running. Um, this deck's main goal is to pretty much just take out, you know, whatever your opponent's playing. Your win condition is Jiraxis. Since you don't have combo, your win condition is Jiraxis or playing something like a Mountain Giant or a Twilight Drake early game and just pushing that damage early and kind of rushing him down. But you got to remember, when you have something like Brand Kazakis, you could make such strong potions and have such strong swing turns. If you do something like summon an 8/8 and revive 3 minions and you bring back like, an Emperor Thorson, a Mountain Giant, and, some other creature, you pretty much win if they don't have a full board clear, which most classes don't. Warriors or Warlock's one of the only classes that has that with Twist and Nether. There's not like a ton of classes that have a clear everything. I mean, I guess you could brawl as a warrior, but I don't know. There's not a ton of classes that run clear everything, and you just win. So that's a good win condition as well. But this deck, there's very important nuances about this deck, and for the most part, I like to show a deck in action. But when you're running 30 different cards, they have such specific situations where they're important that um, I don't think it would do as much good to see it in action. Um, I'd rather show it. I'd rather talk about um, like what certain cards do in certain matchups and why they're important to certain matchups, because a lot of people don't really understand what exactly each card needs to do in each matchup, right? So like for instance, a card like Jiraxis. If you're playing, I mean, Jiraxis is such a powerful card, but only if you play it correctly and at the right time. If you're playing something like a priest, like a dragon priest or a Reno priest, Jiraxis is huge because they cannot answer a 6/6 every turn. That's how you win. It's almost an auto win once you play it. But you need to make you want to play Jiraxis early in that situation because they can't answer it. But obviously you want to make sure the board, isn't going to kill you. But Priest is going to have a ton of bursts from hand. So that's like the type of stuff you need to consider with most of these cards. I want to go through each of the matchups so I can show you the important cards. So like if you're playing something like, and mulligans are important as well. This deck is, you really got to mulligan important, like correctly with this deck. Almost always Dirty Rat is not a keep. When you're looking at the early game, you almost always don't want to keep Dirty Rat because it doesn't, if you play it on 2 against an aggro deck, sometimes you have to, but normally you don't want to because you're not going to have an answer on 3. You want to look for stuff like Doomsayer on 2. You want to look for stuff like Acidic Swamp Ooze against a Shaman or a Pirate Warrior. Mortal Coil is good because it answers patches and you get a free card. Soulfire is good. Messengers and Mixtures is good. Corruption, while it's not like high value, if they play a Buccaneer on 1 and you Corruption on 1, and they play a weapon, you get hit for 3 and it's dead. So while it's not like incredibly high value, it takes care of that 3 damage. You only get hit once, which is kind of important. So a lot of these early cards are much better than Dirty Rat. Obviously, you want to look for board clears like Demon Wrath, Hellfire. You want to look for Kazakis. Pretty much all these early game cards are better than Dirty Rat. So a lot of people would keep Dirty Rat just because it's a taunt, but that's not necessarily right. If you look at something like I'm trying to think what the most like thought-provoking matchup is. Okay, let's say like Jade Drew, which is a bad matchup for Renolock. I believe it's 42-58 for Jade Druid. The way you beat that, you cannot take them to a long game, right? Because they're just gonna outvalue you with the Jades. You gotta rush them down. You gotta be looking in the early game, because it's Druid. None of these cards are important. Maybe Faceless Shambler, but besides that, none of them are important. You need to be looking for Twilight Drake, and you need to be looking for Mountain Giant. You want to do turn 3 Twilight Drake or turn 4 Mountain Giant, and then you want to hit him with like a Faceless Shambler, or I mean, you gotta push that damage quick because they're not keeping mulch ever. Druid does not keep mulch. You got to push that damage and just beat them before they can start making those things. You got to put pressure on them. That's the only way to win that matchup. If you want to try to take them to a long game, you're going to lose. You want to switch to Jiraxis? You can try, but they're just going to swipe you in the face twice, Feral Rage in, hit you with a 3/3, and then you just, like, you can't go a long game against them. You look at a deck like Reno Mage. Reno Mage is, I believe, slightly favored against against Warlock, right? Yeah, 53-47, slightly favored. So, okay, this is really important. So, against like a normal Reno Mage, they're going to have a Fireball, they're going to have a Frostbolt, and they're going to have a Roaring Torch after they play their Flaming Torch. So that's 15 damage. The only way you're going to beat a Reno Mage is if you switch to Jiraxis. So since they have 15 damage in hand, what you need to look for, and this is really important, when you do your brand Kazakis, well, first off, it's really important. You want to try to Dirty Rat their Kazakis or their brand and kill it. That's really good. So normally, a good play is maybe brand Dirty Rat, and if you pull one of them, kill it. If you don't, then you can play something like brand Dirty Rat Kazakis, right? So in your Kazakis potion, you want to look for armor. It's very, very important to look for armor in the Reno Mage versus Reno Warlock matchup. You need to look for armor on your Kazakis potion. Because once you switch to Jiraxis, you just pop down that armor, and their 15 damage combo of Fireball, Frostbolt, Roaring Torch, it can't kill you. And they're not going to have enough minion pressure to outpressure your 6/6s. So the way they beat you is by doing that 15 damage. But if you get some armor, switch to Jiraxis early, you have a chance to kill them. I guess some more important cards in certain matchups. I'm trying to think which matchups are like really, really key. I don't know. I mean, for the most part, you just want to remove what they have, which is kind of obvious. But the key is finding that turn to switch to Jiraxis. You want to have like a pretty clean board. You want to have some like a Sun Fury in hand, so you can taunt up some guys to protect them. You want to have a little heal in hand. That type of stuff is how you win the game. And if you do something like Twisting Nether and clear the board, drop Doomsayer so they can't play anything, next turn go Jiraxis, you're almost always going to win. That's pretty much the ins and outs of Renolock. There's more specific situations. Maybe I'll play a couple games and walk you guys through it. But that's it for now for Renolock. Till next time.